Welcome back. This is the producer's guide to screenplay options and purchases. This is video number 2. We're going to discuss genres. Movie genres. There are a lot of movie genres. Some sell better than others. Some are extremely difficult to sell. And we're going to get into what sells and what doesn't. But first, let's look through the genres. First on the list, you have action-adventure. It's a great genre. Think of Indiana Jones. Think of, what else? Let's say war movies. Saving Private Ryan was an action-adventure movie. Think of things that are just full of action, a lot of bullets, car chases, things like that. Action-adventures are very, very sellable throughout the world. And sometimes if you have a good movie, you don't really need a star. You can have a B star. For example, I said in the first movie, Steven Seagal has made a life of action-adventure movies, a career, I should say. Reason I keep saying Steven Seagal is I was in one of his movies. But he does make a living doing action-adventure movies, and he is not a big star anymore, but they keep financing them. So Jean-Claude Van Damme, all these people still can get movies financed because action-adventure is a great genre. Next on the list is drama. Dramas, while may win Academy Awards, they are pretty difficult to get financed. You really need to have a big star, or you're going to do it extremely cheap. So that's one. I've read a lot of drama scripts that I thought were great, but just so hard to get together that I kind of pass through them. I don't really go into dramas very much. Horror films. If you're just starting out, I cannot recommend more to you than making a horror film, especially as a producer and even more so as a director. Think of people like Sam Raimi, who was able to get Evil Dead done really well for low budget at the time. Was like $200,000, which was nothing in those days because you had to shoot on film and telecine and all that. And now he's doing Spider-Man, and I think he just signed on to do World of Warcraft. So he started out with a little horror film. Horror films, if you're by the time you hear this, maybe it's old news, but there's a movie out right now, I believe it's called Pandemic, that they made for $10,000, and it's made a couple million already. Horror films can have a life of their own, and really, the Blair Witch Project's another example. And they don't have to be that great of a movie. They just need to find a fan base that just digs it, and off it goes. So as a producer, a horror film's a great one to get into, and especially if you're a director. Comedy. Comedy is a very hard genre to do as an independent filmmaker. Either you're going to do it extremely cheap, or you're going to do it with a big star like Adam Sandler. With big stars and comedy, yeah, that's a good way to get something financed. But for low budget or no budget, it's really hard to sell your comedy. I know this firsthand because one of my feature films that I directed was a comedy, and I will never do it again. I love going to see the funny people on the screen, but not when I have to make them. It's a hard genre, but you're welcome to try it. Romantic comedies are wonderful. People love romantic comedies. They're totally different than comedy. They're more of think of, let's see, what's her name? Sandra Bullock does a lot of romantic comedies. So does Renee Zellweger. They love doing, and these are the kind of movies that if you can't get a big star, you can probably get someone decent. I made a nice living doing romantic comedies for Lifetime Television. So there's a lot of outlets that look for romantic comedies. So definitely something to look at. Biographical films. I love them. I want to say James Adams. I'm a horrible American right now. And Samuel Adams is a beer. You know who I'm talking about. The HBO special, Adams, was tremendous. And those are good sometimes. They're very, very high budget usually. But if you get a great one, it's possible to get it financed. Especially a lot of actors want to do biographical pieces, so there's the option to find a good actor for that type of genre. Sci-fi is fantastic, and you can definitely make a low-budget sci-fi movie. Things are cheaper now, green screen, a lot of do-it-yourself type stuff, and if you do it correctly, you can do something really well. To a little bigger budget, but was the movie that was just out, was it Section 9 or I think it was Section 9, the one that about the spaceship that lands with the creatures over South Africa. Brilliant movie. I loved it. And did tremendous business. So sci-fi is a really good one. You don't necessarily need any stars. You just need a lot of cool effects and action. So that's something that's really good to get into as a producer. Animated movies. I love them to death. Very, very hard to get off the ground. They require a lot of time. It's really not a real low budget way to make them and have them done well, because they take a lot of time for artists to make. But if you get something that's amazing, I actually had a really great animated movie that was similar to Cars way before Cars came out. And we shook it around and had some meetings, but nothing really came of it. But it's a very difficult genre to get into. Dramedy is another genre, and it's basically a drama and comedy mix. Another hard kind of movie to put together. I can't think of any dramedies offhand right now, but definitely not something that you want to get into as a first-time producer. Not very good. Family's been really hot lately, and there's a lot of people financing family movies. You need to do them on a budget, meaning a couple million or less. But there's a good market out there for family movies, maybe because of the world we're in, and we want to have something nice and cheerful to watch instead of all the other atrocities going on. So family is a good genre to get into. A lot of studios will want to get into movies like that. I was involved with Agent Cody Banks, which was action, adventure, and family. So really good things with family. And lastly, I'm going to talk about creature features. These are great hot sellers. Sales agents and distributors eat these up. Basically, it's the werewolf, that American Werewolf in London. That was actually a comedy creature feature. But it's movies that have, the monster or the creature from the Black Lagoon or whatever. Leprechaun, things like that. So even kind of Saw was a drama, a horror film, but it was also kind of a creature feature because the main guy was, just really freaky. So, but creature features are great, and if you can get your hands on them, they are tremendous. Another example of a creature feature I had was about a crazy court jester the king put into a kind of a time capsule, and he was awakened years later in the modern day, and wreaked havoc everywhere. He was like this really creepy kind of court jester guy. But things like that, they really spark people's attention because they can have legs. If you create a really good creature feature, there's sequels all over the place. Just think of how many different creature features you've heard of that have had 2 or 3 versions of it after that. So these are the genres that the main genres. There's also kind of things like art house, the stuff that you see at Lemley and things like that really are difficult to put together. I would recommend staying with certain genres, and we'll talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about what genres sell. Check out Blockbuster and go through there and see the new movies and see what they're having in stock. What's new and hot. If they have a ton of horror movies, that might not be the way to go right now. Maybe it's more sci-fi. But take a look at your competition and then see if you can do better. And, that's a great free reference to take a look at. Next is the Hollywood Creative Directory Distributors Guide. It's a fantastic guide and they update it quarterly, that has every distributor in the book in there. And you can not only just look at the distributors and see what kind of movies they sell, but you can also contact them and say, I'm so-and-so the producer, and I'm putting together some money to make a horror film. Is that something you guys are buying right now? And they might tell you, you know what, the market's really influxed with that right now, so we're not looking for horror right now. We're looking for sci-fi. So definitely good place to find good distributors, or all the distributors actually, and make some phone calls. Roll up the sleeves and do a little work. What genres do sell? Horror, action, and sci-fi. That's constant. If you're going to make a movie and it's your first time out, and in my course, Film School On Demand's course, making and selling your first film, I highly recommend making one of these three genres, because these will sell all day long. There's always going to be some kind of a market, and you will find a way to get your movie distributed. So that is what I recommend for genres. We picked our genre now, and now we're next going to talk about what formats our scripts need to be in. So we'll talk about that in the next video.